This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting tonight from Mogadishu, Somalia. Good evening. This is your quintessential hellhole. There's no government, no police, only anarchy and chaos, danger and death. We're at the airport, just arrived here a few minutes ago. There was a firefight at the end of the runway as our plane came in. Early reports, Pakistani troops engaged in a firefight with one of the kind of Mad Max vehicles with a machine gun strapped to its side that the bandits and thugs and gang leaders in this part of the world specialize in sending to test perimeter defenses. The Pakistanis' main role has been to keep this airport open and under United Nations control. About 1,000 people die every 24 hours here from gunfire, disease, starvation. One person will die roughly every 2.5 minutes while this broadcast is on the air. This is the kind of situation the Marines, followed by the U.S. Army, will be coming into. For the official version of what President Bush is planning, we go to our Defense Department correspondent, David Martin.
Dan, the official name for this rescue mission is Operation Restore Hope. But whatever the name, it amounts to U.S. military intervention in Somalia.
Our mission is very clear. Our mission is to create a set of circumstances that will allow the delivery of relief supplies, food and medicine to the starving people of Somalia.
Cheney and Joint Chiefs Chairman Powell outlined an operation that will begin early next week with Marines going ashore at Mogadishu, then inland to Baidoa. Within a week, more Marines, along with Army troops, will fly in from the U.S. and fan out north and south. An estimated 28,000 U.S. troops will be involved.
We also wanted to put in a large enough force that we could dominate the entire country and not just find ourselves trapped in a port or in a single city.
Neither Cheney nor Powell expect U.S. forces to encounter any significant resistance from the armed gangs which now control the country, but no one is promising a risk-free operation.
There should be no illusions. This is a potentially dangerous mission for those who are directly involved in it.
When you say to somebody, take 28,000 troops and send them 7,500 miles or so away, and by the way, there's no potable water there, and there are no gas stations, and there's only one or perhaps two C-141 capable airfields, and the port facilities only hold one or two ships, that is very demanding.
It has not been decided yet if and how U.S. forces will attempt to disarm the warlords, but it is clear American troops will be authorized to shoot first.
We're just not going to ride shotgun, waiting for people to shoot at us and then shoot back.
And let me say to the men and women of our armed forces,
the White House has said President Bush hopes to have American troops out of Somalia by January 20th, Inauguration Day. But that is not going to happen.
We don't want to be bound by an artificial deadline that is unrelated to circumstances that our troops face on the ground in Somalia.
My own instincts tell me that this looked like about a 2 to 3 month operation before we could have the bulk of our forces out.
The plan calls for U.S. forces to establish enough order to begin the delivery of food, then turn over the mission to a smaller, more lightly armed UN peacekeeping force.
It's sort of like the cavalry coming to the rescue, straightening things out for a while, and then letting the marshals come back in to keep things under control.
This may well be the last military commitment made by the Bush administration. Randall Pixton at the White House has more on the president's decision to send in the Marines.
In September, the administration was telling Congress that sending massive troops into Somalia could cause even more bloodshed. But the continuing violence and the heart-wrenching pictures of starving children convinced Mr. Bush that America must act.
only the United States has the global reach to place a large security force on the ground in such a distant place quickly and efficiently, and thus save thousands of innocents from death.
It is a radical change in the use of America's military forces, intervening in a country where no U.S. strategic or security interest is at stake. Mr. Bush told congressional leaders and then the nation that troops won't get bogged down.
Our mission has a limited objective: to open the supply routes, to get the food moving, and to prepare the way for a UN peacekeeping force to keep it moving.
Although there is keen awareness of the danger to America's forces from armed Somali gangs, lawmakers were heartened by Pentagon assurances that the operation could avoid heavy casualties.
I think the impression we had today strongly from the military leadership is that they do not expect major confrontations with armed forces.
But some would have preferred a full-scale congressional hearing before sending troops.
The risk, I think, is that any time we commit American forces without clear, precise military objectives, that we've gotten in trouble as a country. What happened in Lebanon is American forces weren't allowed to defend themselves, and when things got tough, the Congress cut and run. We face the same danger here.
The Bush administration denies that. Operation Restore Hope about a month ago, President Bush was talking about leaving office quietly. Well, that won't happen, and in fact, it could even pose some challenges for his successor. Correspondent Susan Spencer is with the president-elect in Little Rock.
Randall, in fact, the Somalia problem is George Bush's today. As you say, it could well be Bill Clinton's problem tomorrow. Still, Clinton has been at great pains to both defer to Mr. Bush and praise his actions. First to arrive at the mansion this morning, Senator Gore, followed later by Pentagon, State Department, and CIA briefers, who a spokesman said gave the president-elect a detailed picture of the Somali mission and plan. Earlier, Governor Clinton did venture outside to chat with a staff member, but otherwise stayed out of sight, intentionally.
Because we have one president, and that president is President Bush.
In a written statement, Clinton praised the UN for showing that, quote, the international community will not stand idly by while armed bandits force starvation on millions of people. He said he fully supports Mr. Bush and shares his determination to ensure the success of this important mission. Privately, some aides wish that mission were more specific, though, especially as to when it might end.
We hope that the situation is cleared up as soon as possible, that the food lines are open, that we have a secure environment, and the troops can come home. We agree with President Bush's statement that they shouldn't stay one day longer than necessary.
But most here assume that that day will come after Bill Clinton has been sworn into office, and perhaps long after. For him, the questions may well be, when is it safe to leave Somalia? And what does this all mean for future U.S. interventions in a post-Cold War world? Now let's go back to Somalia and Dan Rather. Dan?
My colleague Alan Pizzi has been out and around Mogadishu for a couple of days. He shows you what he's seen and heard.
They're still only a vague shape far offshore, but the Marines are awaited with expectations and high hopes. And more than a few problems await the U.S. troops. The port is a primary objective. There's supposed to be an agreement starting tomorrow that none of the warring gangs who hold sway here will interfere with the distribution of thousands of tons of American sorghum, Australian wheat, French rice, and other supplies that have been piled up here for weeks. But in the violent world of Somalia, aid is money. The Marines will be taking over the financial base of the warlords, and no one expects the gunmen to give up without either a fight or a deal. Their menace forced even humanitarian agencies who disavow all violence to have armed guards. That's just one problem the relief workers want to discuss as soon as possible.
We have our own security at the moment. What will their role be? What will the Americans' role be in relation to them and to us? These gunmen actually come with the car. In a sense, they come not to protect us, but to protect the owner's interest in his own particular vehicle. So it's a far from easy matter simply to say these guns will be replaced by American guns.
The UN troops who control the airport are a classic example of how hard it is to take over. The gunmen they replaced on the tarmac 2 months ago just moved back 50 feet or so and still effectively control access to the airport. Half a mile away, semi-starving refugees subsist on a charity of a small aid agency. They must be wet-fed, given food already cooked so it can't be looted. Relief officials want the Marines to take control of the main road out to remote districts where thousands of starving people are clinging to life. Only by giving them security can there be any hope of the survivors going back to their land. Aid workers with long experience here say there is a feeling among ordinary Somalis that the arrival of the Marines may mark the last chance for a future free of violence and chaos. But not even those who live in hope expect it to be easy. Alan Pizzi, CBS News, Mogadishu.
I'll be back with more of our special CBS Evening News from Somalia in a moment. If all goes as planned, this is what's going to happen at this airport. When we rolled up here, there was a donkey and several dogs on the airstrip. That was just after the firefight at the end of the airstrip. Once the U.S. military gets in here, this will be transformed. First, there'll be U.S. Marine helicopters to come in and secure the airport itself. Then the huge transport planes will begin arriving. While those planes arrive and carrying all kinds of Marines, Army, Air Force, and Navy personnel, families at home will be watching, waiting, and worrying. Bill Lagatuda reports from Camp Pendleton, California.
A young Marine corporal packs for Somalia.
Yeah, it's kind of a hard thing to deal with.
With all the requisite pride for the mission.
There's people there that need our help. They're starving.
But that doesn't make it any easier at home.
I feel alone and abandoned. I mean, you know, we're still newlyweds, for crying out loud. We're supposed to be together.
Since that won't happen, Randy and Shannon Southland were busy rushing the season.
All the rest of Marines can go, but leave him home with me at Christmas.
That's what all the wives say, half-jokingly, whenever Camp Pendleton empties out for a crisis. And lately, it seems like there's always something. The Gulf War, and now this.
We're asking you to do a difficult and dangerous job.
Mary Arts watched the president on TV this morning while her husband got a final farewell haircut. Why does he have to leave now, the week she learned she is pregnant?
There's joy and sadness right now, so we'll try and look on the joy.
That also describes how this community is reacting to the ordeal. Most here do believe helping Somalia is the right thing to do, but they're not kidding themselves. Most military actions do have casualties.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to come back or not.
Alyssa Cochran fears for her brother. Sergeant Harold Musnug wants to spend every last second with his two daughters, Alexis and Stephanie.
It's going to be really sad. And I know he's not going to be there for my birthday.
In many ways, this feels like a replay of 2 years ago. The same gung-ho enthusiasm, the fear of the unknown, and the prevailing view that no one is coming home soon. 6 months is what most here are preparing themselves for. It's always rough on the families. Maybe this time, the cause will help.
Poor me, but I got to stop and think about the poor people in Somalia, really.
Bill Lagatuda, CBS News, Camp Pendleton, California.
For other developments in the news, we go down to CBS News Worldwide headquarters in New York and Connie Chung. Connie?
Thank you, Dan. The big story here is the economy. We'll be back with a report on how the recovery may finally be spreading to the job market. There are new signs that the economy is improving in a very important place, the workplace. As Money correspondent Ray Brady reports, the nation's unemployment rate is now the lowest since April.
For Mike Warham, married with 2 kids, happy days are here again. After 6 months on the unemployment line, he's been hired on a construction job. And once again, he's bringing home a paycheck.
Put me back to work. Got me a reason to get out of bed in the morning. Can't stand sitting home waiting to go to work. I'd rather be working.
And some other Americans are going back to work. For the 5th straight month, the nation's jobless rate dropped in November, down to 7.2%. A sign the economic recovery may finally be working where it counts the most, in jobs.
We're seeing a reduction in layoffs and an increase in job creation in this economy. We have steady growth ahead of us.
A separate payroll survey shows that 105,000 new jobs were created during the month, the biggest increase since July. And while 45,000 of those jobs were temporary, jobs in the election campaigns, 35,000 jobs were created in manufacturing, where the U.S. had been losing jobs.
Manufacturing job growth is the most significant figure in all of this report because it tells us that our base economy is beginning to revive.
By some estimates, the private sector could generate about 600,000 jobs over the next 6 months. That's not as much, however, as the nation needs to really get unemployment down significantly. Just one of the many issues facing President-elect Clinton and his advisors at their upcoming economic summit. Still, at this factory making picture frames and mirrors, owner Michael Barlow says consumers are buying again, and both his business and his workforce have increased.
What I noticed in the last month was a steady increase in hiring on the part of myself, this company, and some of the other companies in the industry.
They've been paying overtime at this factory, and in today's figures, the average work week is getting longer. In the past, that's been a sign that the factories will soon be hiring more workers. Ray Brady, CBS News, Brooklyn, New York.
An oil slick 12 miles long from that tanker aground on the coast of Spain is spreading to the north and east, threatening fishing grounds and wildlife. At least 8 million gallons of crude spilled from the burning Greek ship, and some of the oil was in flames on the ocean surface. Police are questioning the captain to determine why the tanker ran aground yesterday. Billowing clouds of smoke from the burning oil filled the sky over La Coruña, a nearby city. In London, official word today on what caused that $100 million fire last month at Windsor Castle. The report says it started in the Queen's Chapel, where paintings were being restored. A hot spotlight came in contact with a curtain, setting it on fire. An opposition labor leader called the findings a whitewash. There is a promising new treatment for the most common of inherited fatal diseases, cystic fibrosis. An FDA advisory panel is recommending approval of experimental gene therapy for some patients. If the treatment works, it may ease symptoms and even correct the genetic flaw that causes cystic fibrosis. In Baltimore, health officials have announced a controversial program to deal with the problem of teenage pregnancy. They will offer sexually active high school girls Norplant, a contraceptive that's implanted under the skin and lasts 5 years. That's the news here at home. Dan Rather will be back in a moment with more from Somalia.
President Bush is confident that this is the right thing to do, confident that he will pull American public opinion in behind him. But certainly not everybody in the country is convinced, at least not yet, that this is the right thing to do at the right time. Nowhere is this truer than in recession-ravaged Southern California. Cindy Kennard takes the pulse of American public opinion.
The U.S. to the rescue again. Should America be leading the charge again?
It seems like we're always supporting everyone.
Americans seem to be struggling with this one. Defense workers worried about layoffs in Southern California worry about this mission, too.
I think it's another Vietnam.
Once we get into a situation, it's very hard for us to get out of it.
We're policing the world, right? I think it's about time we let somebody else do that.
But America always does it. Food drops for the Kurds, aid after Armenian earthquakes, and now feeding Somalia. Should we? At the unemployment office in New York, ambivalence.
I think it's best for us to, go ahead and help them out because they have, much less than we have.
Well, I think the government should help this country out first.
Perhaps there is so much anguish because there is so much hurting here at home.
There are a lot of people who need food, clothing, and shelter right here in South Central Los Angeles.
In Florida, full recovery from Hurricane Andrew is a long way away.
I would prefer to see more money spent in this country.
We're Americans, and we deserve, to be treated first.
The fact is there are 30 million people who are hungry and undernourished in America. Rebecca Schmidt and her 5 children are in a Los Angeles shelter now. They know what it's like to be hungry.
Your stomach hurts and the kids are crying and...
Hungry Americans are fed through food banks, serviced by groups like Second Harvest in Chicago. But by and large, they are fed.
In Somalia, we are not talking about a malnutrition problem. We are talking about a starvation problem.
Nobody in America argues Somalia's need. There is great concern for these people overseas, just a month after voters rejected a foreign policy president in favor of one who said he'd bring the focus back home. Even some of those hurting want to help.
I believe we need to help them. Any child that's dying because they don't have anything to eat.
So it's the U.S. to the rescue again, abroad, if not at home. Cindy Kennard, CBS News, Los Angeles.
For the close of our broadcast tonight, we've moved from the airport, which is only just a short distance away, into what's called our CBS compound. What it is, it's an abandoned former ambassador's residence. The residence has been completely shot up, bullet holes all over it. There's a wall with jagged broken glass at the top, barbed wire on top of that. As we drove from the airport to this compound, we passed many recent, very shallow graves butted right up against a vast area where people who've been knocked out of their homes are living in the open with no plumbing, no sewage, no water. There's some gunfire just over our shoulder then, and the stench of death in that area was everywhere. We came over, by the way, in what's called here locally as the Mad Max vehicle. This is the kind of vehicle that the warring gangs here use. This is a newly redecorated and outfitted four-wheel drive Toyota, and it has on the top, if you notice, a heavy caliber machine gun. Now that machine gun may look to you like it's something out of a museum or old-fashioned, but this is the version of kind of drive-by shootings in Somalia. And this will be the danger for U.S. troops as they move in. This and the fact that so many people have weapons here that they can just fade back into their homes, put the weapons right under the bed, and wait to see what happens with the U.S. military. Part of our world tonight. Don't forget that our CBS News team will be here reporting on this still developing situation all through the weekend into next week. We'll be here for the duration. Dan Rather for the CBS Evening News, reporting from Mogadishu, Somalia. Good night.
Experience CBS News.
Eye on your health.
Eye on your money.
Eye on your children.
Eye on the environment.
Eye on crime.
The issues that affect you every day. Eye on America, only on the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
The people of CBS News. Dan Rather.
Connie Chung.
Mike Wallace.
Paula Zahn.
Ed Bradley.
Leslie Stahl.
Harry Smith.
Morley Safer.
Bob Schieffer.
And Charles Kuralt. Experience.
CBS News.
This is CBS.
Attention all stations concerned. There will be an update of the CBS Evening News.